before you tangle up in that thing.
Okay, you guys.
Right.
I've given you everything I think I need to give you
Is
at the
this
moment.
going to be the fastest meeting we've ever had?
It
See
could
how
be
well you
really
run it.
Close.
Oh, thanks.
Could be close. It could be close.
All right, okay. Let's call this meeting to order, 4:32. Consideration of any changes, additions, or removals to the agenda. I know we are going to, or entertain a motion to change the chemo battery backup presentation. They're not able, yeah, they're not
they're
able
not
to
here.
make that, so.
So it's a remove. That's
It's
what
a,
it is.
it's a remove.
It's a remove.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
you,
removed.
Dave.
Number 5 from the agenda. Any other changes or additions? Good. Comments from ratepayers? None are present. Number 4, approval of minutes.
Yeah. So we have the minutes from December, I think December, let me check. January's
January,
minutes.
yes.
Yep, January's minutes to approve.
Has everyone gotten a chance to read them over?
Yes.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay, then I will pass this around and ask you guys to sign by the end.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Oh.
Do you need a pen?
You don't
Yeah.
need my pen. Do you need a
Will we get it done?
That's funny. Okay. All right. Number 6, well, now 5, approval of sick time payout.
Yeah, so this issue came up as a result of changing from the PTO, from the sick and vacation time calculations that we used to do for staff to the PTO structure, and we needed to pay out the past stuff, the sick time stuff. There is no impact financially on the utility. It's eliminating a long-term liability and just bringing it forward, paying it off, and getting it out of our books. So that's the purpose of it, is to switch to the PTO thing. If you want to know how much it is, this is it's a total of $265,000 to do this, and it covers sick pay in 24, 25, 26, and what we think was going to be awarded this year in that. So it's completely, as I say, that number was on our books anyway as a liability. It's just being removed and paid out, okay?
So now, the payout or the sick leave, is in line with the union
The
contract.
union contract, correct, yeah. And it's actually not sick time anymore, it's called
Oh.
paid time off.
Yeah, right,
Which
Yeah,
lumps everything into one bucket.
right.
And the
Understand.
reason I mention that is because most organizations might pay for vacation that's carried over. Rarely do I see an organization pay for sick time that's carried over. So, but you guys are unique in a lot of ways, and so this changes that. It makes it consistent with the union contract is probably the best way to describe it.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, I do need a motion for the approval of that.
Do we need a dollar amount?
You don't need to approve the dollar amount. I just drafted it. Okay. You don't need the dollar amount, but if you want it, you can. What's your preference?
No, we don't need it.
You don't. No, you don't need
I'll
it.
make a motion that we approve the sick time payout.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So, Manager's report.
Okay, so we're moving on to manager's report.
Christ, why do I keep doing that?
I'm gonna start throwing pens
Get out
at
of
you.
here too.
You know what? I'll start throwing pens
Yeah,
at
right.
you.
Yeah, please, I am so sorry.
It's fine, it's fine.
I am
It's
so,
hilarious.
so
Hey, we're
sorry.
laughing.
I
Okay,
know
so
you
we're
are,
moving
but-
on to manager's report.
What a
Mr.
great-
Manager,
what a
may I
great
have your
idea.
report?
Yeah, thanks. I submitted it yesterday, which is not ideal. And I think you'll know why I'm a bit delayed when we talk about that in executive session. But the reality is, we've been working on, we implementing the budget, finishing the audit, we are doing some personnel stuff. I've been working on the personnel manual, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And trying to, again, look at systems that can integrate our coordination between my friend Brett and his staff and our friends in the inside office to make a team. So, unfortunately, I thought I would have the personnel manual for you tonight. I do not. And I think maybe the result is that next month we'll have all three pieces of this. We'll have the personnel manual, the proposed organization chart, the proposed job descriptions for you all to review, and hopefully like a week or so in advance of the meeting. So I'm planning on that for March. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I don't know if you guys have questions for me, but things have been going well. We do have, as you'll see on the agenda, we have some financial issues we need to address, capital budget being one of them. It really worked well for like the 3 weeks that we had it in effect. No, we'll talk about that. And I think we're continuing to work on contracts and other stuff to make sure that we have power for next year. I will say that the power charge we got this month was 31% higher than we thought it was going to be. So this is crazy. If you want to be a sustainable utility, and this is long-term, I'm just giving you my advice, long-term, you need to have in region, at least, it doesn't need to be in your system, but it needs to be accounted for in your system for energy services. And Brett and I have already talked about, like, when the weather's better, going out and looking at the hydro plant and seeing whether that can be energized, because hydro would be a great help to you guys. So
Is any of this due to
Tariffs.
the tariffs?
Not
with
yet.
the- with
Not yet.
Quebec?
not yet,
Hydro
and I
Quebec.
did ask VIPSA to investigate that, and they thought, so the only energy source you're susceptible to from tariffs is the Hydro Quebec charge. The Niagara, you have some Niagara hydro, but it's on the US side, okay? So the Hydro Quebec stuff, they honestly didn't feel like it was going to significantly impact us, but it will impact us some. There will be an increase. in
So
costs.
what's the impact from this month?
I'm sorry,
What caused that?
Oh,
the increase?
The increase? It hasn't happened yet. It would be the tariffs that.
No, I mean the increase that we had this
31%
month.
increase.
Oh, the 31%. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's the colder February or January. It's the pressure on natural gas. It's the upper limits of the cost per megawatt hour cost that has gone up to, I believe I saw $200 or $300 a megawatt hour in recent times. So it's adjusted every month, but it is variable and it's not controllable. unless you change the sources you are getting your energy from. So most of this is ISO New England, cross New England grid.
So everyone in the state,
Oh, everyone's dealing with this.
Increase that
Absolutely.
amount, okay.
You're not unique.
Okay.
You're not going to experience this
Okay.
uniquely.
And a lot of that is based on weather.
Some is based
Or-
on
or
weather.
usage.
Yeah, it's a combination, usage, weather, availability of particularly natural gas, and the price of natural gas, and what else?
Fuel
Fuel
costs.
costs, which for a generation in New England is mostly natural gas at this point. As I think you saw on the pie chart that we did a month ago, there's a small sliver of oil there, but it's really only used, because it's expensive, it's really only used in extreme circumstances to turn on right away that you need. And the hydro, I guess I would say, I know during the summer, the hydro was lower than expected. And I don't know what the status is right now, but I'm not sure it has come up to speed yet. I don't know, Brett, do you have
And
any
you
thoughts
mentioned
on
that there was a hydro thing you're gonna look at.
Yeah.
In this,
Well, the old hydro dam.
The old hydro dam.
which dam is that?
The one on Pauline.
Lake Pauline.
The one right on Pauline.
Oh, okay.
And please don't think of this as a positive thing at the moment. We are way beginning this, and I have no idea whether this is feasible or not. But once we get a chance to look at it, we'll have a much better idea. The fact that the dam is there and the penstock, as Brett has told me, is there, means you might be able to do something with that, and get permission from Department of Environmental Conservation and federal emergency, federal energy resources, commission. But that's a long slog. That's gonna be a 5-year, 6-year process.
Is it the dam right at the beginning of the lake by Clear Lake Furniture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we, so I know that for the most part, when it comes to Stonehouse, that was mostly negotiated and brought forward by VEPSA, right?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we were involved in the discussions, but obviously it was before my time, so I don't know how much.
I guess I'm just curious, like, if we have in the past refused proposals
Yeah,
from VEPSA?
I don't know.
Or if
I don't think
VEPSA
so.
has,
I don't think we've had any proposals in our territory before, so I think this
is there
might be
an
the first.
opportunity for us to engage with somebody else that might be a little more aggressive? It seems like VIPSA, like it is something that we use VIPSA for, but if there's only one person
Right.
that manages all the it seems, from their presentation I was gathering, there's
I
only one person.
understand your point.
And
What I
I
can
would like to be
say,
more aggressive, I think.
okay, what I can say is, at 11, I think you're gonna pay 11.5 cents kilowatt hour. Very, very competitive
Yep.
on the market. And sure, you could do this yourself. You could do all this yourself, right? It's everything that VEPSA does for us, we could do ourselves. It's just additional
Staffing.
work, time, staff,
Yeah.
availability, professional knowledge, ability to move.
Well, that's why I just
forward.
wonder if there's like
So
other private entities to coordinate with that might,
you can,
Be
I
more
mean,
aggressive?
I don't know the answer to that. I can answer the first question,
Yeah.
first part of it, which is yes, there are certainly other parties
Are there, yeah.
available. Whether they would be more aggressive, whether they would be more cost competitive, I don't know. So
How are we tied into them? By a yearly contract?
what we have done is agree to purchase the power from this and the RECs, the renewable energy credits, which will save you at least $130,000 a year, if not more, to buy that power at that rate and it's a 25-year contract. And it started last year, was approved by the board at that time. Because it hasn't been constructed and we haven't finished the permitting, it has increased in price a little bit, not a lot, but some this year. And that's why we're trying to execute this tonight. And it's a good project. It does provide power to Ludlow as a priority. We can sell back power to VEPSA if we're not using it, but I think we're probably going to use all of it or most of it. But the most important part is even if we sell back power to them, we're going to retain the renewable energy credits so we can use them for our needs,
Yep.
for the regulatory purposes, or sell them on the open market. So that's what's going on there. They do hope to construct this year. I don't know if that's going to happen because they still need PUC approval and stuff like that.
And we can revisit that when we get to the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's my report. Sorry, that's it.
Quite all right.
The the superintendent's report will relate to what was old item 9, now item 8, about the capital budget, because we discovered a little flaw in that capital budget process.
Okay, so let's move
Thank you.
on to superintendent report.
Okay, everybody's got a copy of it. Meter reads are done. I think we finished those today, so that's complete.
Thank you.
Dig safes, there was none. President's Day storm created some issues. We took out Proctorsville. Ives Road, we had a tree down, took the line down, took a transformer down. We still have a broken pole in the cross country out by Scott's Terrace, Birch Landing. But that's all back up and running. The other line trimming, we've got a little bit of budget left, but Ellison Lake Road and Fishing Access Road's been completed. We had a crane crew come in yesterday for a couple trees on Buttermilk Falls that were danger because they had split during the storm. The truck testing was done, everything passed, no issues with the trucks. We have cover-up grounds and all our other stuff being tested tomorrow. And Chris was saying what we didn't have in capital budget, we don't know, is for some leeway for emergency expenses and where to pull. So what happened is we had a reclosure that we decommissioned on Okemo Access Road. So what that entails is by doing away with that reclosure, we close in the solids, and now that feeds off the reclosure at the substation, so if it trips it, it takes a lot more customers out. These reclosures have hit their life expectancy. Howard had two he bought in 2008. For some reason, they never got installed because he wasn't happy with what they were. Since I've talked to the engineer, they're 15 years old, they are at their life expectancy, but he recommends that we take one of them and put it in place of the one that we've got decommissioned, get it programmed, use the other one as strictly as a parts machine, and at some point we need to order another one because there's two in this location. There's one that feeds Trailside and one feeds Okemo Base area. The Okemo Base area one is the one that failed. Who knows what's going to happen with the other one if it really got in a drastic emergency. The problem is the lead time to get them.
Yeah.
And you're talking, probably by the time you're all set and done, each one's about $50,000 by the time you buy it, install it, and get it programmed.
Yeah.
And how long does it take for them to, like, once we order it?
A couple of years probably.
It's unfortunate that, God bless you for this, but unfortunately, he's got to predict what needs to happen 2 years, 3 years out
Mhm.
because of the lag time of getting stuff. So this was one of the issues that we had, but the reality is, we have these on call. When we met last week, we talked about, if they're at their life expectancy, let's not do that, we'll get another one. But if it's 2 or 3 years to get a new one, then we're not going to be able to do that, and maybe it's best to use this one, even though it hasn't been used. It's 15 years old, it's been out in the weather, but it hasn't been used.
Like, it hasn't been out in the weather, they were starting to
Oh,
shop.
sorry.
And they
Okay,
inspect
great.
it,
Okay.
they inspected it.
Well, they'll, yeah, I mean, they've
They
gotta
will.
come in and
Yeah, they
program
gotta
it,
come in
test it,
and-
Yeah.
so.
So I think, well, we'll get to this in the next thing about, like, this was what kind of triggered our thinking about an emergent, the capital budgets, like as I said, worked well for a month, but we had this emergency and like, we didn't anticipate how to deal with emergencies, and we should build that in either
Yeah.
as a contingency or
Yeah.
as an emergency
Right.
level that we can spend and then get
Yeah.
retroactive approval
That
from
or
you
you
guys,
just
but go ahead.
Get bonds to borrow on or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are we, so is this, are these all in the RGIS system,
Yeah.
the reclosures? Is there, I mean, within the GIS system, is there asset management function just to, like, are there others that we should be thinking about? Others at risk
Well,
around town?
we've got a reclosure in stock that we're got on the schedule for this summer to be changed out
Oh,
in
all right.
Smithville substation. The two in Commonwealth were done in '89, so those are in good shape.
89 is
two-
good shape.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's still
All right.
out there, but,
Yeah.
I mean, 30 years technically is what you shoot for and
All right.
something like that, 30 to 40 years.
I'm just curious, like, how many are, like, within the next 10 years? Do we have that kind of, is that easy to pull up in the GIS? Is there,
No, because we haven't laid it out to,
like, year of install and stuff?
yeah, we
I-
haven't laid it out to
Yeah,
that point of replacement.
I think the GIS system can accommodate that data, but I don't think that's in there in terms of when it was installed and life expectancy and things like that. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. I don't know. But it can be, but it's not been done yet.
I'd be interested in exploring that if we can, but, you know,
Yeah.
that means another person.
Well, somebody
It seems like
to,
it might be.
it's a data management thing
Yeah.
that, and inventory and data management, which is kind of what we were talking about with Brett's help. And
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
talk, I
exactly.
we haven't talked with Lisa about what she's able to do for him, but these are the type of things that
Be
I
nice to
think
have.
she
That
could
would
do.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for,
Cool. Well, good job on the snow, I will say, in Randolph, no problem. Don't know how it was here. We did have some wind, but not like what you guys got
Oh,
here.
yes, it was impressive. Okay, let's move on. Anything else, Brett?
no, that's it.
Okay, moving on. Amendment to capital budget, emergency expenditures.
So this feeds nicely
Going
into
back
this
to-
conversation, right? We had the reclosure that went, it's 50-something thousand dollars to do, and, you know, with everything involved. Not that we could get it tomorrow, but these things are gonna happen, and we didn't anticipate, like, stuff breaking down. Everything we told you about in the capital budget were things we were planning on, not things we didn't anticipate. So we kind of feel like there needs to be authorization of maybe $50,000 for us to deal with capital things that then come back to you for approval afterwards, but you understand why we did them and we explain why we did them. So that would be an amendment, I guess, I would ask that you make to the capital budget.
And it's not
thinking-
something you guys could still approve before, prior to us doing it.
Yeah, well,
But you,
the prior or
Well-
after?
I mean, for like,
If
these
it's
type
an
of, I mean, it's an emergency situation.
Right.
You initiated conversations before you talked to us, but then confirming with us
Yeah.
before
Yeah, and,
invoices get paid or what's.
and as Brett said, if it's a 2-year lag time to get the thing, then
Yeah. Right.
that's fine. But the point is, if it's something that you need right away, we would like some buffer
Right.
to be able to manage that, so that,
Well, that
I don't know,
makes
can you
sense.
think
It
of
makes
another
sense.
And the
example of
board, the
something you-
board could meet for an emergency meeting.
Yes, you
And-
could. So, yeah, I mean, there are several ways to handle this, and it's not just this reclosure, but this is what kind of triggered it, but I don't know, I can think of something else that might require an immediate thing. I hope not. The thing that I think could be a more immediate thing is like one of the trucks goes out of service and we gotta buy
Motor.
a motor or something like that. Something that's quicker, but expensive enough to warrant your review and consideration and to understand it's a capital expense that we hadn't anticipated. But there are several ways to handle this, so whatever you guys
Putting it
would like
under
to-
like an emergency.
The only thing is, and going forward, after maybe this year, I don't anticipate that with new staffing, but prior to this year, I mean, there were some things that were purchased that we shouldn't have purchased.
Well, that you
Not
should-
we, but that got purchased, that there was not enough thought given to.
Or even
Yes,
approval.
but what I will say is, in defense of that, I think the items, and they were significant items, I think they were purchased because they were needed, but they weren't purchased in accordance with, like, your approval. Obviously, you didn't have a capital budget at that point, but they weren't purchased with your approval or in kind of a, what I would say is a fiscally responsible process that could document
Yeah,
that.
I don't mean to
No, I'm
try
not
to tie
criticizing.
anybody's hands. All
Yeah.
I'm saying is, we're going to have new people in new positions, and so I just want to make sure something, no point in asking the board if it's only going to take a day or two. I'd hate to see a purchase order issued, and then it turns out, well, maybe we should have done something else, and it's too late to stop that.
Okay.
That's all I'm trying to
Yeah.
Because we have
prevent.
gotten into,
Because,
in
because,
the past,
because
there
we've
was that
seen that
situation.
I kind of
happen.
understand.
We've seen it happen.
Okay, could
And I-
you, I'm sorry to be really explicit, and you don't need to be if you don't want to, but I am having trouble understanding this example. Are you willing to actually
Transformer?
express
Yeah.
this
For the
example?
mill.
Okay.
Submersible transformer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
all
We
right.
went pretty far down the road
Yeah.
Okay,
before
all right,
realizing
thank
that it
you.
was kind of a.
Thanks, now I understand.
So
And the-
maybe
Sorry
one way
for
you
being
could work
dense.
on that out, though, is you would have to approve it, you would have to approve it.
Then
Then
it
you
comes to
have,
you
it's an
guys.
emergency situation.
If it's over a certain dollar amount, whatever
Right,
you
right,
choose.
and then come to the board with it,
You
because.
can hold an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can,
I-
sometimes, right, I mean, I hate to rely on emergency meetings as a structure,
Right.
right? Because there's certain things that need to be done, and these guys are gonna be doing stuff other than like coming here at 4:30 in the afternoon and getting you guys together. That said, I mean, I really do think it's appropriate to have a contingency authorization so that they can do this in retrospective. It's understood that this is gonna be a retrospective approval or
Right.
disapproval based on the situation that occurred. And it's gonna be very rare, but like this happened, it's no problem now because it's gonna be 2 years to get a new one, right? But we do have the expense of installing this and programming it, which wasn't anticipated. So that's an example where, okay, $5,000 for programming. I don't know how much for installing. What do you think, Brett, for installation? But
Probably a day and a half.
Yeah.
4 guys and trucks. By the
Okay.
time you take the old one down, put the new
So
one up.
there is an expense associated with it
Yeah.
that was not anticipated,
Right.
that we need to be able to do as a utility, and then come back to you and tell you we did it, and tell you what it cost, and make sure you're okay with it. And-
Next year, we can anticipate it.
So, but for instance, like when that submersible transformer was purchased, you weren't,
Had nothing to do with it.
you had nothing to do with it. So
Which is
what I'm
crazy,
saying
right.
is if there's approval from,
Yeah,
say, the
basically.
office
Right.
and.
Whatever it
Redundant
takes, I don't
or-
want to see something like that happen again
I agree.
with anything.
I'm really annoyed. There are two things I'm annoyed about. Maybe I shouldn't say this on the record, but I will say it on the record. Two things I'm annoyed about. One is that the people for the submersible transformer required us to do a purchase order before they would tell us the specifications, the length, the size, the width of that thing. We did the purchase order, we signed the contract. Then they told us it, and it wasn't gonna fit inside where we had it. So we've switched to a on-pole transformer out of the flood zone. We now have to pay a penalty because we signed up for a transformer that we're not gonna get or take.
Yeah.
And, we did explore with them the idea of, okay, give us credit for this to something else, and it was just outrageous. It was 2 or 3 times the cost of what it would cost to go somewhere else. So I think we're done with that company. But the point is, I don't know who did that, but if it wasn't involving Brett, that's wrong. That team needs to be involved in any decision about an outside plant piece of equipment. But so does the inside plant, inside people need to be involved with Brett's consultation about what they need, so we can negotiate the best deal
Right.
as the office
So
staff.
approval by both.
Yeah,
And then coming
right.
back to the board if it isn't an emergency.
Right, and
then
that also is
a
not an
retro.
emergency, and most of that is gonna be covered by FEMA, 90% of it, but not the
Mhm.
penalty that we're talking about, so.
Large penalty.
So everybody's working in good faith, but there are things, you've hired me to look at this organization and see how to make it better, and one of the things that need to be made better is the communication and coordination of some of these things, because they can easily be avoided if people are talking with each other and trusting each other in their judgments. That's what needs to happen. So, I think you can handle this multiple ways. You can do it by special meeting and say we need to hold special meeting if there's an emergency expenditure. You can do it by setting a contingency amount to the capital budget. You can do it by setting a authorization amount in the capital budget, subject to review and approval by you guys. You can do nothing. I would prefer the third one, I said, which I think do a contingency, a authorized expenditure is an emergency circumstances up to $50,000 to be reported back to the board and subsequently approved by the board.
So we need to spend $50,000. You're suggesting that that process take place, and then it comes back to the board for approval.
Yeah, yes.
So what would be wrong with getting the approval from the board and then going ahead?
Right. In this case,
Well, that,
nothing.
actually, I have to
Nothing,
add to
okay.
that, I have to add to that question, because
Okay.
in that instance, say there's an emergency, say it's 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
We're not having an emergency meeting at 3:00 in the morning to give them approval to or
buy
say
something.
Nor are we
there's-
probably
or-
buying something at that time of
Yeah.
year.
Well,
No,
right,
exactly.
but if there is an emergency,
Right.
you know what I mean, like, if
Yeah.
there's a flood,
So-
right, none of us can get here, or,
Maybe a better example is, in this case, you're right. I mean, we've got 2 years before we can order this thing. We've got one on site, we can do that. Maybe a better example is the one that happened a month or so ago, where GMP came in with a piece of equipment
Oh, when
and
the
installed
substation
it
went
when the
down.
substation went down. So they came in the same night, installed a piece of equipment. We have to pay for that,
Yeah.
right? And so it would be helpful if Brett had the authorization to approve that and not worry about, oh, I have to get board approval before I can spend this money to buy this piece of
Is that
equipment
what
this
happened in
moment.
this case?
That is what happened in the last case, right?
Right.
Okay.
So there, I think that's a better example, because that's a more immediate thing where somebody else, GMP in this case, is bringing in a piece of hardware that would normally be a capital expense and giving it to us on an emergency basis.
so maybe in this situation, we determine what an emergency situation is, right? Like, I mean, or give a definition of our emergency situation in the case of
Mm-hmm.
flood,
Yeah,
power, that kind of instance.
maybe something that needs to be resolved in the month between the meetings that you have scheduled. Obviously, we can schedule a special meeting, but maybe that's the right length of time, is to say if something needs to be done between meetings and you can't get approval, that you've got the ability to do X, Y, and Z.
Up to 50,000.
I think that seems to be a good number based on this reclosure.
How much was the GMP expense?
Wasn't
Do
that?
you know?
I don't even know if we
Wasn't
got a
that
bill.
much.
I don't know if we got a bill on that.
Oh, excellent.
I haven't
Well, if
seen
we don't
it.
get a bill, we won't do anything, okay?
That's one thing with them, I mean, one hand washes the other.
Yeah, but they did come in within
Yeah.
the day,
Oh, it
right?
was
Yeah,
what-
they responded immediately.
Yeah.
They brought a piece of equipment. It might have been $10, it might have been $10,000, I don't know. But they brought a piece of equipment with them and installed it, gave it to us at that time, knowing
Yeah.
that they would be reimbursed at some point. And that's
Right.
a decision that we have to make to, like, okay, we're gonna let you install that and commit to paying you for that, even though at the point we don't have authority to do that, right?
So-
So the goal is to get some authority to do that type of thing.
So I know we don't have the organizational chart
Right.
approved, but who do you see having, being able, or needing to sign off on this, on the organizational chart that we don't have yet? Because that's what I'm getting at, is I want to know who's approving this and
Responsible.
Right, right.
make
So-
sure that all the people who need to are involved in it.
Yeah.
Because that has not been the case in the past.
Understood. So if you authorize something like this, it would first fall to the outside plant manager, superintendent,
Okay, yeah.
operations manager, whoever they are. They need to make that decision,
Okay,
not the department manager, right?
okay,
The department manager might be informed about it and sign off on it and then bring it to your attention, because the department manager will be responsible to you,
Okay.
right? And they need to understand
Okay.
the information and bring it to you. But the decision about what needs to be done by the professionals that are working in the field.
okay. So I'm good with that. If that's the
Okay.
way, that, if those two top-level folks know it's needed, agree and approve it, I'm fine. If that's the way you see it going, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Without
I
a special,
agree.
without a special meeting unless
Right. Thank you.
But
somebody wants.
And I think there should just be a definition of, it goes from this,
Yeah, it starts
and
with,
these are the reasons.
Right.
This is the emergency.
And I kind of like the idea of if it needs to be done in the month between meetings, right?
Right.
And we can't bring it to you. I like that idea, because in this case, the reclosure thing, no, we're here, we're telling you about it, We still didn't have it in the capital budget, so we may need to amend the capital budget to include that.
That's
But
fine.
that's a different issue, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not the emergency response thing.
Okay.
Do you have any further thoughts on that? Is that okay with you?
Good.
I think that all makes sense to me, and I would agree. I do, I'm glad you brought up the GMP thing, because I think that was where my head was going, was like mutual aid situations. And if there is ever a situation where we have a piece of equipment and we help GMP or whoever is, neighbor.
Yeah,
And then other situations where the neighbor helps us in the same way.
yeah. Well, that's probably rarer that Ludlow
Yeah.
would go and give something in GMP, but it's a really good point because you have authorized us to own that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And we're basically, yeah, we're selling it to them, but we're selling it to them and depriving ourselves of having that available. How are you with that? Because, you're right, that's
Yeah.
part of the issue.
Well, I wonder if that's, just another in those line of policies that we should
Yeah,
consider and how frequent that might happen.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to see, and I'm sure an expenditure like that wouldn't happen, but an expenditure over a certain amount not go through the department heads and just somehow make its way to accounting without somehow getting a
Oh,
signature.
absolutely.
I mean,
Oh,
I'm sure that would never happen,
No.
but as long as it doesn't
Right.
happen, that's fine.
No, I think based on, even though you're right, we don't have an organization chart, but we're working on one. My concept of this would be, it would come from Brett to me, and the details would be, and the financial part would be worked out with the financial people. They would not be just
Making
approving
that-
it or
okay.
making decisions.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I agree, yep.
Okay.
Should we make that motion? Should that be a motion?
Do you
It
need,
should be a motion, and what is a
But which-
motion? Is there an allowable emergency capital budget expense if it
Emergency.
occurs between meetings, I don't know, if
Yeah.
meetings don't, allow for it to be reviewed by you guys? I don't know, I didn't phrase
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I would, move to create
Please phrase that.
an
differently.
emergency expenditure fund of up to $50,000 for emergency expenses that need to happen between meetings, as long as they are approved by both the superintendent and the department manager.
Beautiful,
Nice wording.
nice work.
I'll second that
All
motion.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we'll pass that. And then in the next meeting, you can if we want to kind of come up with the wording
Right.
in the, yeah.
I would just flag that policy and that concept for the financial audit section.
Yeah, gotcha,
Oh, yes.
understood.
Oh,
And
yeah,
just
good.
see
Yeah.
if he also has any thoughts and wants to review this new.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea.
That is a good idea, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Revision to Stonehouse Solar Project rates.
Yeah. So, this project has been going on for a couple of years. It was approved at a rate of 11 cents kilowatt hour for purchase. We would sell it, it was a good project for the receipt of it. Because of the delay from 2023 to 2024 and now 2025, we did, Shannon and I did finally sign the agreement with VEPSA to do this, but it's been a long time in coming. MHG, who's the constructor of this, felt that they needed a price increase. They couldn't offer it to us at that price anymore. They increased it by 5%. It's still a very good deal for us. We think you should approve it. You approve the original one, or the board here approved the original one. And Sarah has created this amendment to approve the additional cost I recommend you approve it, but I think I gave you each a copy of this?
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
the resolution.
Yeah,
and so I guess I'm available, any questions, because it's really
just, I hope this is a quick answer
Yeah.
to this. The,
I hope so.
the delay,
Yeah.
in a nutshell, what caused the delay?
I'm going to be charitable by saying, I think it was a combination of the change in Tom and my position.
Yeah,
Not much, because I reviewed this like the first
Okay.
week I was there. The attorneys, truthfully, I'm going to say it was the attorneys fighting back and forth over a particular language. It took months to do that. And I am
I felt that
annoyed.
going on.
Yeah,
I am
remember
annoyed by that. I have raised it in an email to the attorneys and to VEPSA to say, I'm annoyed that this took this long. I understand, people have things to do, but yeah.
Will you
that's-
communicate our annoyance as well?
Yeah, sure, I'll be happy to
Okay,
communicate that
really.
too, that you
Because-
felt the same way, but absolutely, but that agreement between us and VEPSA took much longer than it should have taken. I had one concern when I got here, and I reviewed it in the first week.
Yeah,
My concern was that we make sure that even if we sell the energy back to VIPSA because we can't use it, that we get to keep the RECs, the
Mhm.
renewable
I remember
energy
that.
credits, because
Yeah,
we need
I
them.
remember you saying that.
And that took September, October, November, December, January, 4 months to resolve. I mean, I talked to Ken Nolan of VEPSA. He was in agreement with me. That was not the problem. So I know this wasn't a short answer.
That's
but I'm going
okay.
to say it was the attorneys trying to work back and forth. I'll, in fairness, say that the attorney on VEPSA's side had health issues, and there were holidays, and that, but it was long,
okay.
but it cost us 5%.
Another reason that I might be interested in pursuing and at least exploring whether there are outside vendors that we might hire for this process that could help
Yeah.
streamline that.
For,
If it would-
for energy projects?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
if it's gonna go through that. I mean, my takeaway from the VIPSA presentation, one of those initial
Yeah.
VIPSA presentations was just that it seems like there's one person that really coordinates with all their utilities to help bring forward and do all the calculations and all the math over what, making sure that a project is economical
Yeah,
and makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
And I question.
You know what, I'm just, this is just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about this now. When they are negotiating on behalf of all the municipalities for a bigger chunk of an energy project, let's say a hydro project somewhere
Yeah.
else, or a solar project that's somewhere else, and we are being allocated a portion of that based on an agreement they do, I think that's a good idea. When you are actually constructing a energy project in your region, I think you might be right in terms of like just contract it elsewhere, get it, assume it, and then you'll be in a position to sell excess back to VIPSA, not,
Yeah.
or to Green Mountain Power, or to anybody else you want, right?
And if we
So,
don't-
that is, I think that's a really good concept. I think it applies to smaller projects that are within our
That makes
purview.
sense.
That's-
Yeah, I guess maybe, fingers crossed, that now that we have this Stonehouse Solar as the
Yeah.
model, that contract language being tested and tried can be reused if other projects are developed.
Right.
Would
It's
that
easier.
affect our contract with VEPSA though?
No,
No.
it does not, no.
Okay.
So, the question here is, this is a power sales agreement amendment that Sarah has proposed here to allow us to increase the price. Trying to see where is it, February 26th. So we did this originally, commercial operation 2026, 27. We authorized it. Chair of the board, this authorizes the chair and me to execute an amendment to this agreement. So this is not even the amendment. This is an authorization to amend that. Which,
So I will make a motion that we adopt the resolution to authorize the chair and the department manager to execute the contract for the Stonehouse Solar Project power sales agreement with VEPSA.
Enough said. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll pass the revision of the Stonehouse
so
Solar
pick
Project.
one of these,
You got
one
one.
of these copies and sign it.
Yeah, we
That'd be
do.
great. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, if you ever need anything notarized,
You
just
now
let me
have
know
your
in
notary.
advance. Well, I've been a
Excellent.
notary for,
Yeah, but you mentioned that you got to renew
well,
it.
yeah, you have to
recently.
renew it every
Yeah.
2 years, so
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to
Oh,
let
that's
you
great.
know.
Yeah.
I've
Just
re-
tell me to bring my
I
stuff.
renewed mine too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have you? Okay.
Yeah, but if
But I
you're-
can't notarize
Yeah,
my
you
own
can't
signature.
notarize your own
Right.
stuff.
Anyways, so that doesn't need to get
No.
read into the record?
No, it
Just-
does not.
Okay.
No, here you go.
All right.
I want it back. There you go. However, I would like a copy of the superintendent's report to attach into the minutes.
Wait a minute, I can,
Forward it to you. Oh, shit.
Yeah, somebody forwarded it to me.
okay.
Brett, much like I get all of the select
Yeah,
board
we should have
stuff.
that one right there.
Yeah, I'll put it right with the minutes.
Risha, did I send you mine? Did I send you my report?
No,
Okay, I will.
There's
I
a
will do
copy
that
of
as
it.
well. Okay.
I think it's nicer if we just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
great, yeah.
I am-
Yeah,
I
it
do
must
too,
make it
because
easier
in
for
the
you.
past, when we've
Oh,
tried
yes,
to
please refer to it.
research
Yeah.
stuff without the reports,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
hard to.
Yes.
Okay.
I am sending Lisha at least the agendas in advance so she knows what she's in
No, I
for.
get them off the website.
Oh, you do? Okay.
okay.
You get them.
Well, thank God you didn't come tomorrow. Thank you for that heads up. We had the 2/28 as a date for this meeting on the website.
And I'm like, well, if it's tomorrow, I can't come.
We fixed it.
All right, moving on. Now, number 10, personnel manual discussions pending draft to review.
Yeah. So my hope was that I would have had a manual draft for you here. I don't. And I'm thinking we gotta postpone this a month. Maybe then we can just coordinate the manual, the organization chart, and the job descriptions all in one shot. I will explain to you in a few minutes why that didn't happen. I will tell you that what I'm doing is I'm looking at the existing personnel manual, I'm looking at the union contract, and I got a model from Stowe Electric for their personnel manual. I'm just kind of picking and choosing kind of the best of all those things and trying to put them into a draft that you all can review.
And if it helps, I know they also have templates.
Yeah,
I believe,
yeah. So
for that as well.
Yeah, so
If it helps.
I apologize that that didn't get done this month, but I am committed to doing it by next month with the other pieces as well.
And maybe it even makes sense because we're having the audit, the financial audit.
Yeah, it might.
It might just make sense
It
to
might
do it
work,
after.
it might
anyway.
work out perfectly.
Okay.
I don't know, but it is a month delayed from what I had planned, and I apologize for that.
I just, and this doesn't need a motion, but I just want the board to know that as number 10, as that process goes on, I will touch base with Chris and just kind of follow that process.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, I'm going
Okay.
to represent us at some point.
She's pretty
Well,
attentive.
I mean, if we want to make a motion, I would put
Yeah.
you right on
You
in
know,
charge of that. That's-
Yeah,
Okay.
appoint her as the board.
Liaison or
Liaison
Yeah.
something
to the
for,
department.
Yeah.
I'll
for
move that.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Did you second it, Shannon?
Oh, I will second that. I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay.
I will second that we put,
Appointed
Appoint-
Jean as board
Appoint,
liaison
yeah.
to the business office.
yes. So
On the
good.
personnel.
Personnel manual
Yes.
revisions, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed. Gina, you are now in charge of that. At this time, we will be entering executive session regarding personnel. If we could turn off.
Do you have
Do we
a,
have-
do you have a,
Done.